screen thing in a minute.
There we go.
Yay. Yay. So this is Thrive on Thursday for anybody new who's just finding us. And it is a presentation that happens, 2 or 3 times a month on Thursday. The first and third Thursdays, and then the 5th Thursday will be a visioning session. And it is from, and you probably realize this if you've reached this recording, the inner journey chapter, which is part of the Centers for Spiritual Living. So we're glad that you found us. And tonight's theme is on our monthly theme, which is Power to the People. I believe the theme was chosen because the United States has a very important election coming up next month. And so it's something that's in the air and all around us and just about everywhere here. So it's a very alive topic. We open with a prayer. And so I am going to see if I can get my other, wait a minute. Hang on one second. Sorry, give me just a second to do this share screen thing, but I need to share my other screen and then find the thing that says, oh, here, share sound. Okay. Are you all, I'll give it a minute. Are you all seeing my prayer for my country?
No.
No, that's not on your screen?
Nope.
No.
Shoot.
Nope.
Okay, what did I do wrong? Okay. I don't know why that isn't being shared, because that's what I am in the moment. Maybe I didn't do the share screen properly. Are you able to see my screen?
No.
No, not at
Nope.
all. You're not able to see my screen at all. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It would be much cooler if I could do this. Okay, now let me see if you're, hang on one second. Sorry, I'm not going to take too much longer with this. I've hit the share screen. All right. Do you see it now or no?
No.
No, not at all. Oh, it would have been really cool. It says it's now full screen. But you still don't see it.
Correct.
Oh man, I don't know what it did. All right, well, that would have been way cooler than what we're about to do. Let me get this screen back, my Zoom screen. And I don't know why it didn't do it.
Now you're done. You're sharing.
Now I'm what?
Now it's sharing.
what?
Yep.
Really? Now I'm screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
We can see your Zoom.
Now can you see it?
There we go.
All right. Okay. So tonight's prayer is from the founder of Science of Mind. So I didn't say all of the Thrive on Thursdays, we will explore some Science of Mind principles. The same is true for tonight. So this is from the founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, and it is a video that was done at the Mile High Church, which is out in Colorado. And it's a really cool presentation of My Prayer for My Country by Ernest Holmes.
Believing in the divine destiny of the United States of America and the preservation of liberty, security, and self-expression, I offer this, my prayer for my country.
I know that the divine intelligence governs the destiny of the United States of America, directing the thought and the activity of all who guide its affairs.
I know that success of everyone in this country.
I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are now operating in the affairs of every individual in this country.
I know that divine guidance enlightens the collective mind of the people of this country,
causing it to know that economic security may come to all without the loss of either personal freedom or individual self-expression.
I know that no one can believe or be led to believe that freedom must be surrendered in order to ensure economic security for all.
The all-knowing mind of God contains the answer for every problem which confronts this country.
I know that every leader in this country is now directed to this all-knowing mind and has the knowledge of a complete solution to every problem.
And each is compelled to act upon this knowledge to the end that
abundance, security, and peace should come to all.
And I know that this spiritual democracy shall endure,
guaranteeing to everyone in this country personal liberty, happiness, and self-expression. And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Awesome.
Yeah. I liked that way to present it. It was a prayer.
You're good.
Oh, okay, hang on. All right, there we go. So one needs to turn off the YouTube entirely. Otherwise, it will start showing something else. Okay, so that was a prayer published in 1953 by Ernest Holmes. And it's a great lead in to our topic tonight, which again is power to the people. All of the talks this month that have been distributed to some of the all of the centers of spiritual living, and it's also in the Science of Mind magazine as the theme this month, with the vital national election on the horizon. The Centers for Spiritual Living has been engaged and has been offering something called 100 Days of Mindfulness Practice for our national election. And I've been participating in that and have found it really wonderful. It's using spiritual themes, so it is not partisan at all. If you're interested in it, you can still get in on it and even listen to some of the little 2 to 3 minute daily mindfulness practices. It's one would just enter an internet search of my election intention, and that will come up and give you a link to the Spiritual Center of Atlanta that is running this. It's been a really great practice, and it I'm going to say part of it comes from the Centers for Spiritual Living having a global vision of a world that works for everyone. I heard Reverend Petra Weldis from the CSL Center in Dallas talk about how some years ago, the Centers for Spiritual Living did an intentional shift from me to we. And what I mean by that is that Science of Mind had been very strongly grounded and had done an amazing job of helping individuals become empowered in their own lives. Am I muted? No. Oh, okay, I saw a mute thing come up. And so it was an intentional focus to say, hey, let's do a better job in incorporating the we. So some of my thoughts, some thoughts around this global vision is that it reflects CSL's belief in the interconnectedness of all life and the potential for a world grounded in love, peace, and abundance. It embodies the idea that by living according to spiritual principles, such as the inherent divine nature of all beings, the creative power of thought, and the unity of all life, that we can collectively create a world where justice, harmony, and well-being are accessible to all people and to the planet itself. CSL, in setting this intention, envisions a global community where individuals are empowered to live to their highest potential, working together to bring about positive social and environmental transformation. This vision is deeply aligned with the science of mind philosophy, which emphasizes living in harmony with spiritual laws to manifest a more enlightened and compassionate world. Now, about a year ago, I attended a conference that was put on by the whole organization, by the Centers for Spiritual Living, where I believe that it was the first time that a focus on sacred activism was initiated and unveiled. At least I believe so. It sounded like it was newly coming out to everybody at that time. And there were lots of questions about that, like such as, does it take us off principle to have this newfound focus on activism? I personally did a practitioner session where I was the client with Tracy Brown, where we talked about that. And she said, you're holding your spirituality here and your activism here, and you're struggling with how does one, intertwine the two? And I certainly was. And at that conference last year, I heard a lot of people with questions and just asking, like, what does this mean? And so I would like to talk about, I didn't say what I was going to, sorry. So what I'm going to cover tonight was the theme, and then talk about the global vision, which I just did. And next, the part we're about to go into is what is sacred activism, and why talk about it? Like, why is it important? Then to have an exploration and discussion of what does sacred activism really mean for us who are practicing science of mind as a way of life, and how might we bring that into our daily lives? And then finally, I'd like to end with takeaways and actions for our lives, a pathway for implementing any new awareness that comes up from tonight. So what is sacred activism? So I did an internet search on sacred activism, and what popped up was a website for the Institute for Sacred Activism, which is something that the author Andrew Harvey, have you heard of Andrew Harvey? He's a pretty well-known author. He's authored 30 books, and he's pretty intellectual. And he's written books on mysticism and spirituality, and but he really got into sacred activism. And so I wanted to offer his definition, and these are in his words. We might use slightly different words. However, I think it gives us an interesting place to start. So he says, a spirituality that is only private and self-absorbed, one devoid of an authentic political and social consciousness, does little to halt the suicidal juggernaut of history. On the other hand, an activism that is not purified by profound spiritual and psychological self-awareness and rooted in divine truth, wisdom, and compassion will only perpetuate the problem it is trying to solve, however righteous its intentions. When, however, the deepest and most grounded spiritual vision is married to a practical and pragmatic drive to transform existing political, economic, and social institutions, a holy force, the power of wisdom and love in action, is born. This force I define as sacred activism. And those are the words of Andrew Harvey. He went on to clarify a little bit further, saying, and this is the point that I'm really wanting to highlight here, both contemporary spiritual seekers and activists, so he's got spiritual seekers and the activists, have not been connected to a vision of action that is inspiring, hopeful, and rooted in deep spiritual wisdom and compassion. Some spiritual seekers, for instance, use spiritual knowledge as a subtle way of dissociating from hands-on realistic social, economic, and political engagement in the world, thereby ensuring that the world and its people will be abandoned in its hour of extreme need. Activists, on the other hand, are prone to complete exhaustion, burnout, and debilitating and divisive rage, and are often cut off from the healing and transforming wisdom of the spiritual traditions and the simple techniques, prayers, and practices that could sustain, inspire, and nourish them in their heroic endeavors. And then he concludes by saying, we have seen that in the very heart of the chaos of the modern crisis, an extraordinary lineage has arisen of ordinary people who have fused deep spiritual knowledge, experience, and practice with wise, incessant action for justice and peace. Having emerged against all odds, they accomplish the unimaginable. And so I wanted to start with those two ideas of spiritual seekers that have not been connected with a vision of action. You know, like I personally have seen it and experienced it. And I've also seen and experienced the other hand with activists getting really burnt out. And so I wanted to just start there with what are your thoughts so far around this, around how is this landing so far?
As one of the seekers, I would say what I've tried to do is be open to whatever is mine to do. And let that just fall into my lap. I'm not going out and looking for, oh, which parade shall I march in kind of thing, or which rally should I attend or whatever. But let me be mindful of the things that are mine to do, which has led me to be more active in terms of writing to people in prison, as opposed to actually, you know, marching or whatever.
Exactly. It's actually one of the things that I have even a little further in here.
But again, to me, it's like, okay, let me be open and let Spirit tell me those things that are mine to do. And, you know, sometimes I get pushed out of my comfort zone a little bit when I am asked to do something in particular, but generally it's pretty obvious when it's something that's mine to do. And very frequently, you know, a lot of the activists' active stuff is not mine to do at the moment. Not to say won't change tomorrow, but right now it's not mine to do that.
And I understand he's also talking about a lot of the, like for him, it really is about like really being active in a lot towards a lot of the issues in the world. I heard at one church a while ago where the person leading this service said, it's great that y'all are doing your prayers, and we need more. We need some real support. We need some money. We need some real support, and in other ways.
And it's pretty obvious if you watch anything on the hurricane survivors that they are doing activism by helping each other in one way or another. That
therein lies that is a really great point. It's the action. So I want to go into an exploration and discussion of what does sacred activism really mean for us as practitioners of science of mind, and how might we bring that into our daily lives, and living the principles of sacred activism through a science of mind perspective involves, as I see it, integrating spiritual practices with social action of some form. And so I wanted to present some thoughts on, and it's just a few, on how we could approach sacred activism from this framework, and there's many more. So what I was looking at in this framework is talking about a principle and then a possible action. And the first is recognizing oneness. And you all, if you have any more that we don't talk about in this, and it's something you want to talk about, we can totally do that. But I want to also see if you have some thoughts that you want to bring in. I think the hurricane is a great example. So the first principle, recognizing oneness, or the first, from the science of mind perspective, there is a belief in the unity of all life, that everything is connected through the divine mind. Sacred activism starts with the deep realization that the well-being of others and the planet is interconnected with our own. This leads to compassion, empathy, and a sense of responsibility to act for the greater good. And for an action, one suggestion is cultivate a practice of seeing the divine in everyone and everything. Now, we could talk about that for like an entire hour or more. You know what I mean? It's a practice. It's a practice. It's not a mastery. Before engaging, the other is before engaging in activism of some kind. If you're going to be involved, like say in the political process or whatever, center yourself in meditation or prayer, affirming the unity of all life and the interconnectedness of your actions. And at any time, so not necessary, I can continue, but if anyone's like, oh, that, okay. The second one is creative power. Science of Mind teaches that we have the power to shape our reality through our thoughts, intentions, and beliefs. Sacred activism calls for harnessing this creative power to envision and manifest a more just, compassionate world. This involves combining inner spiritual work with outward social change. And that action, a suggested action, is use affirmative prayer and visualization to focus on the positive outcomes you wish to see in the world, and then take some action toward those outcomes. For example, by the way, this was not from the Sacred Activism Institute. This was me putting together something combining the two of them. Okay, so for example, affirm peace, justice, and healing, believing in the power of your intention to contribute to those realities, and then align your actions. Yeah, the next one is healing through love. In Science of Mind, love is seen as the ultimate healing force. Like, even though it's called Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes apparently said he would have incorporated love into the title somehow if he were redoing it. So in Science of Mind, love is seen as the ultimate healing force. Sacred activism draws on the power of love to address societal issues. Rather than coming from a place of anger or divisiveness, Science of Mind teaches that true transformation arises from love and compassion. And a suggested action is to approach activism from a space of love. When confronting injustice, practice seeing the divine in everyone involved, both the oppressed and the oppressors. I mean, you get it, while still standing firm in the truth. Like, we could do a whole, several days workshop on that, but that's a a suggestion.
How many items do you have on your list?
I have five. Yeah, 5.
Okay.
And
I'll
then
what the
the
other
next
2 are,
one,
and then I want to chime in.
Yeah.
Okay.
then the next one is the power of non-resistance and non-attachment. And we have a lot, there's a lot in this one. So we probably all have heard the saying, what we resist persists. I first heard that in landmark education, which came out of the EST trainings from, I believe, the 70s. But so when I think of sacred activism, I immediately think of one of the most famous things that our founder, Ernest Holmes, said about it. And it's the idea of being for something and against nothing. And that's immediately what comes to mind. And so Ernest Holmes said, find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. So I love the idea of being for something and against nothing. I've heard it like so many people have that now in our perspectives around the idea of sacred activism. And yet I think Ernest Holmes, when he's talking about Jesus, he makes it sound like something that's a little unattainable. And so what I liked, I did a little more internet, and I found an article by an author named Kathy Gottberg, who read what Ernest Holmes had said about the topic, and her article is entitled, "Is it possible to be for something and against nothing?" And I am paraphrasing in certain places here. So here's what that article, "Is it possible to be for something and against nothing?" Had to say, some highlights. Anytime we fight something, anytime we resist something, we only cause it to grow and fester. Even worse is what we become in the fight. The law of attraction, like attracts like, that we each draw to us exactly what we put out. Strong emotions like anger, hate, fear, and condemnation all return to us with the same ferociousness we send out. Like a boomerang, we get what we give. Even if we feel righteousness about our anger, blame, and disapproval, is that what we consciously wish to invite back into our lives with increased velocity? So what happens then? Do we just sit back and let circumstances unfold in front of us that break our hearts? Do we ignore the pain of others and watch while the world around us teeters on the brink of perceived disaster? Again, that is when Ernest Holmes offers more wise counsel. He continues his quote with, "Find me one person who no longer has any fear of the universe or of God or of man or of anything else, and you will have brought to me someone in whose presence we may sit, and fear shall vanish as clouds before the sunlight." The author concludes by saying, in other words, let us return to the very source of our being and fearlessly be for what we want to see in the world and let go of everything else. I know that was a lot. I personally lived much of what she just described in 2016. I personally lived it. A lot of it wasn't conscious for me, but I relate to this so much. Yeah. Lynn, did you have some thoughts around this?
I want to repeat the sentence just to make sure I heard it correctly. So her ending sentence was to be for everything, before everything you wish to see in the world, and release everything else.
Yeah, and first she says, let us return to the very source of our being. So in other words, like let's be connected, like be grounded in that connection, and be fearlessly be for what we want to see in the world, and let go of everything else to the best we can.
Yes. I have a statement that I used to say a lot in prayer in church. And it says, only speak affirmatively of the life you wish to live in the world you choose to create. And as an affirmation, just to start out that vision of really envisioning what I wish to see in the world and how I wish people to, what is the world I want and how do I want people treated, and animals, and the clean food and the clean air and the clean, all of it, our vocations, every single aspect of life. You can do that. Nice.
What I really like about a lot of this is that it starts with a vision, just as that's why I talked about the global vision. That's for CSL as a whole, and many of us who are participating also support such a global vision, but we each have our own personal visions as well, and we're also going to end with something about us personally and what is ours to do. One example I want to just throw out, because I was just in this presentation the other night. I'm in a program called Year of Miracles, and one of the guest teachers, her name is Lynn Twist. She's been an activist for something like 50 years. She started out with the EST training, being one of the very, very active people in what was called the Hunger Project, which Werner Erhard, who developed EST, which later became Landmark Education, John Denver, and Buckminster Fuller are the three people who started it. And the program, it was well before my time and involvement, so I don't have the big institutional history there, but the idea was to end hunger around the world, and she was really steeped in that. She worked with lots of, of our now billionaire, like leaders around the country. Later on, she became involved with the environment and climate change and something called the Pachamama Alliance, and she worked a lot with indigenous people in the Amazon rainforest. What she was talking to us about the other night, she mentioned that the big oil companies started coming in. However, she said, really, the keeping the resources in the rainforest matter a whole lot more to the world, to us globally, than drilling oil in that particular place. And she said she started to kind of become like, it was easy to start to see the oil people as, them and being bad and the enemy. And she was catching herself. She was invited to go to one of the largest oil company, to their offices in Houston, and meet with 4 people who were really had a primary role in a lot of the work that she was involved with down in the Amazon. So she went to their offices, and she said she sat with them and asked them each for their own stories. And they told of what a difference working for that company had made and how much it had changed their lives. And they also talked about the impact that oil and the developments that have come from oil and what it is used for. She named so many products that oil is used for that I had absolutely no idea, that have really helped to advance. I think she even said computers that have helped to advance our society. And she said she was being really genuine about it, like trying to just no longer have it occur as an us and them kind of thing. And at the end, she invited them to come to the Amazon rainforest and come and do a similar experience. So I just loved that particular story, and I wanted to share it because, to me, it really personifies this idea, and I don't know, it made it more real life and more real for me than, you know, the idea of Jesus and you know, trying to get there. So I don't know if that was helpful, but that was so the author of the Is It Possible to Be For Something and Against Nothing said, how do we strive for that? And I thought she had some ideas that I really liked. One is to be very clear about the type of world you want to inhabit, and then do what's important to you. Take the actions around what's important to you. If it's the environment, maybe get involved in whatever calls to you there. If it's safety of women, get involved there. Whatever it may be. But to stand up and support and get involved in some way, in whatever way calls to you, in your community, in the country, that are doing the work you want to embrace. I used to do a whole lot more of that. I was overly involved. Anyway, but I want to do that again. Meditate regularly to remind yourself of the true eternal spiritual nature. Of your true eternal spiritual nature. Train your mind to stay focused on the uplifting vision and find healing like compassion, hope, peace, love, and forgiveness. Really what I was hearing in that was forgiveness work. And being focused on the vision for what it is you really are wanting the world to be. Support organizations and vote with your dollars for groups and people, like vote, not really vote, but like that's how she put it. But for groups and people who exemplify the qualities and characteristics of what you want to experience in the world. Hang out with people who model the type of consciousness you're wanting to embrace. I loved that one too. And then the final one, which I really identify with, which is become as self-aware as possible so that you recognize when you find yourself slipping so slowly or even quickly, I've been there, into anger, fear, or revenge. At those times, do something proactively to create change or gently remind yourself of your greater self.
Yeah.
And then the non-attachment piece, because that was just the non-resistance piece, a lot of it. So I think you'll like this. So in Science of Mind, we practice releasing attachment to specific outcomes, right? And while still taking inspired action. We do it all the time in prayer. Every single prayer, we release attachment to specific outcomes while still taking inspired action. Sacred activism involves doing what is right, guided by spiritual principles, without being overly attached to how or when changes will occur. So the suggested action is to practice surrender, to take bold, meaningful action for your vision, but release attachment to the form and of the outcome. Trust that divine intelligence is working through you and the collective to create the highest good. And then the final piece is live your purpose. I emphasize the your. This isn't from the article. This is just the final spiritual component I wanted to bring in. So Science of Mind encourages individuals to discover and live from our divine purpose, believing that each person has a unique role in expressing divine qualities. Sacred activism, from this perspective, involves aligning your social action with your inner calling, allowing your activism to be a direct expression of your spiritual purpose. Exactly what Sue Ellen was talking about before. You know, for some people, it may not be, a political activism, but it will be still a sacred activism. And the action is reflect on how your unique talents, skills, and passions can be used to serve the greater good. Let your sacred activism flow from a place of authentic spiritual alignment rather than from obligation or do what's yours to do. Those are my words.
Wise words.
And I have teeter-tottered back this whole political season between vision and fear. So it's great practice, right? You know, just at times, you know, I mean, without like what Andrew Harvey was talking about, you know, that real temptation to do the ostrich with the head in the sand kind of thing, you know. And that was something talked about at Asilomar, where it was said, we used to be taught, and we were taught for many years, don't listen to the news. And I didn't start doing that until recently. And then at the Asilomar conference last year, many of the speakers were saying, no, listen to the news. You need to know what to be active on. And I hear that Michael Beckwith says that when you watch the news, you know what your prayers will be.
And that's that contemporary application of science of mind.
Mm-hmm.
You had some thoughts, Lynn, of some principles you wanted to bring in, I think.
Well, this is interesting. I had a whole different idea of what spiritual activism was, or sacred activism. I thought it was something much different. So it was very nice that you brought this up tonight, to give me a better picture of what it is. Reminds me greatly of Season for Nonviolence, at which I was very involved in for a long time up in Salt Lake up there, and did a really big program every spring for the 40 days. So I guess I thought spiritual or sacred activism was more physical, but it really looks as though the way you've described it, it is our principles and allowing that to guide you to what your activism and your activity might be.
That was my take on it.
Yeah, I've never been one to be out in the streets. It's never been my thing, like Sue Ellen said it. I'm the one who can sit and do the visualization and the envision and do the prayer work, because that's my task. It's not my task. It's not mine to do to go out in the streets. And it's not something I would do now at my age anyway. However, or not even, I wouldn't. I like this. This falls into other kinds of programs and I want to say directives, that's not the right word either, of other people that I follow and listen to. And it really is about how do you want to see the world right now and going forward? And how important that is, because our minds are creative. We have that power to create and demonstrate, and we have that power to manifest that. And Lynn Twist, she's a big quantum field person. When you put that formula of your desire and your vision in what you want the world to be, that is absolutely contributing, even on the quantum level, everything in manifesting into the world how we want things to be different. I was speaking with someone today kind of about this in her life, and she had a very difficult time understanding the process, but even coming up with the words. And it really wasn't about the words, which I wanted to explain. How do you see the world? How do you want to see the world? Like I said earlier, how do you want the skies? How do you want the food? How do you want the water? How do you want children to be taken care of? Lots of stuff in the current of some places that you listen to about all the child trafficking. How do you want children treated and taken care of, and safety, even down to homeless people, every single person having a comfortable, safe place to live. You know, how do you want the world? And when I studied what's his name? Maharishi.
Oh, yeah.
Maharishi. Okay. And his college up in the north. And
Iowa?
yes. And when they would do their meditation, when the college opened and they were doing their meditations, the crime rate dropped within a certain number of blocks around the school. I was in meditation one day, doubting what I was doing in my prayer work. And a voice came out of nowhere and said, "Who are you to doubt the power of prayer with everything that you put into it when you speak your words?" So the prayer, the vision, the passion, the energy of it moves mountains, but there can't be fear and there can't be doubt. So as I look forward to this election, I have no fear, and I have not any fear. I am so firm in what I want the world to be. And maybe, you know, that's my end desired demonstration. Maybe something happens and it's neither one of those people. So you really look at who on the human level is going to bring that, make that happen, because it's going to come about in a way that is perfect for the world. And Spirit's got that.
I think that some at the Asilomar conference last year, there's so many things that the Centers for Spiritual Living stand for. We really are for a world that works for everyone, and we're a very open, welcoming community for people of all colors, for people of all races, for people of you know, of all sexual orientations, for people of all religions and spirituality, for people to be able to, you know, honoring all religions, you know, like for people and planet. And there are so many issues, so many issues these days, where a lot of progress seems threatened, and or potentially potentially really threatened. And so I think part of it was, yes, we pray, and that's a big deal. Yes, we pray and we do our spiritual work, but the question came up of, why aren't we engaging? Why aren't we saying something? Why aren't we speaking the truth? And that's why I also put in action on each one that was a combination. This is as I see it. Somebody else might give probably would give a different presentation on it, but I wanted to kind of combine the two and look at how they go together.
You quoted somebody that said, vote with your money. I don't remember, those were not exactly.
It was from the author that wrote is it possible to be for something and against nothing?
So even if it's not you're not going to physically, or I'm not going to physically go out and do something in the streets or at the courtroom or whatever, I can use my extra $10 a month and put that towards what I believe in.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a big amount.
Right.
It does not have to be a big amount of money. It's in the eyes of Spirit. When we put that out there, that $10 or that $20, and we send it to the organization for the protection of women and infants and children, or whatever the nonprofit we're supporting, we're telling the universe that yes, this is what I believe in. There's an action there.
Mhm.
And that's one that's relatively easy to do. And
Mhm.
all of us can afford $10. I mean, they might open up the check and go, oh gosh, we got a $10 check. Okay. And it's still there. We're putting that out there. And if we can afford to send $100 check, great. If we can afford to send $1,000 check, even better. But we can afford a $10 check. And we can afford a $10 check next month too. And the month after that. And the month after that. If that's what we believe in.
Yeah.
If the organization is one that's doing good work. And we may have to do our due diligence to find that out. To see whether or not they are, in fact, an organization that will put my $10 or 9 of my $10 to work. But that piece is also a way to be active in supporting.
Yes.
Being
And
for
Sue
something.
Ellen, you mentioned earlier also the idea of sometimes being uncomfortable with things that you're asked to do. And I didn't include it, but I probably should have. She actually had a point about, hey, somebody comes to you and tries to pressure you into something that doesn't feel right to you, like release that. Like we each have our own things. We actually had that. Something really like that where a friend got really troubled by Israel's response with killing so many innocent Palestinians. And it's not that the rest of us weren't, but it was like whatever we could say just wasn't good enough for him. Like he somehow thought that we had the ability to, and it was interesting. It was causing a lot of division. And yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting there seeing that. Yeah. So what she said is like, sometimes, you gotta just stay true to whatever is, and Lynn, you had mentioned that too, where I've heard you before say you expressed an opinion about something that wasn't popular with some people. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. Sorry, but
That's fine with me. I don't remember what it was, but that's fine.
okay. Well, it's like, hey, that's all part of, like,
That's right.
If I said it, I mean it.
Yeah, that's what
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah. So we just have a few minutes. Let me just ask this just one question. What has been valuable about our time together tonight?
Oh, I can say right away, I said it earlier, I have a whole new definition of what this was because I had the wrong impression. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
That's
Good.
and again, it's my,
I agree. I agree that it was helpful to have an active definition of spiritual activism. Not to say that some other people are going to have different definitions, because they will. There's probably, if we all had to restate it, there would probably be 3 different ones just in our restating it. And Katie's might not even be the same when she says it the next time as it was when she said it when she started this meeting, because she's evolved. And so that's okay. It all changes. But I like the idea that we brought it out and talked about it and have a better idea of who we are in the process and a better idea of what's ours to do. So
yeah, and
it goes to you.
Pardon?
It also brings up us. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue Ellen. Finish say your sentence again.
Kudos to Katie.
Oh, thank you.
It also brings up the notion that this is much simpler than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, it's pretty simple. You can be doing a whole lot of action and divine action a lot simpler than you realize. It can be a part of everyday life.
Yes.
Well, that's what I wanted to intertwine the science of mind principles with, and I mean, I don't know everything. Like as I mentioned, I turned to Andrew Harvey because he had done a lot of work on it, and I really liked what it said, and I thought that's the heart of things, and so that's where I pulled from. There was something else I wanted to say around that, and anyway, that but combining with an action, so I think that was the big thing, was being, back at Asilomar when this got rolled out, it was like, well, we've always been, we're in principles, and I think the principle is like the crux of it, like that's what, and there's so many more principles we could have explored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us. Give me a second. I want to pull this up. And I should have asked this of you before. So if you would like to make a donation to the Inner Journey chapter of the Centers for Spiritual Living, our homepage is inner-journey.org, or you can text. Do you have to text a word, or do you just put in the phone number?
You put in the phone number first.
Put in the phone number 405-337-9739.
And then the amount, and then the word.
Oh, and then the amount.
Well, not,
and then
you dial the phone number first, and then your message is
right.
In the word
is what you want, how much you want to donate, and then tonight's word is vision. So if you would like to contribute tonight, either on the website, there will be a pull-down box that says vision, and you would put it in the body of the text if you would like to make a donation tonight.
Yes.
And then my question was, I was on the website today, and there used to be a button to be able to get the newsletter, and I didn't see that.
I don't remember there ever being.
Okay, so then you would there is a place to email. You could email your email address, and we'll put you on the newsletter if you'd like to be on our newsletter.
Awesome.
Yay. Would either one of you like to do our closing prayer? And if not, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'll do it. I just didn't know if.
Well, I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, with my dog barking in the background, sorry. He's mad, nobody will play with him. So I take this breath, I sit here with ease, kind of basking in this information tonight that is comforting, recognizing that and knowing very deeply that these dear principles of this philosophy, this faith, science of mind, through the Centers for Spiritual Living, through Ernest Holmes, this philosophy serves the world so well, serves each individual using it and understanding it, because the power of the mind and the power of the heart, the power of love and creativity moves mountains. And that is good and very good. I'm grateful for the information that has come forward tonight with Katie. Grateful for the presence of Reverend Sue Ellen, and for each of us here, and for every individual within our group that will be viewing this later, because the input of the heart is very important. I am grateful that I have learned a new definition of this action, this divine action and this divine activity. And I know that it goes out into the world and makes the world new, and makes the world a good place and a comfortable place for humanity to thrive and to grow and be the presence that the Creator, the divine Creator, wants us to be. It is a real expression of thy will be done. And I am so grateful for this time together tonight, and know that every piece of this goes forward as goodwill And so I give thanks for this tonight, give thanks for this meeting, give thanks for this presence all together. And I know that as two or more of us are gathered in this understanding, it does move mountains. And it happens fast. So I give thanks, I let it be, and say good night. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. I was asking if anybody wanted to do it because I didn't intend to talk quite this much, but then I realized I had so much material. Sorry, I didn't mean, but it sounds like it was helpful. So
No apologies. It was great. We could have talked
Great,
for
yeah.